The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher. Welcome to this episode of Disrupt Education. I'm Peter Hostrasser. We have a wonderful guest today. I'm going to call you the scholarship guru, but there's so much more behind this gentleman. Naphtali Bryant, thank you so much for being here, man.
Oh, thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, let's start here. Let's start with a kind of an introduction of yourself. Who are you and what are you doing these days?
Well, my name is Naphtali Bryant. I currently work at St. Philip's College, the only historically Black college university and HSI in the country. It's my alma mater, one of my alma maters. I work in the records and registration office, so I basically handle transcripts, grade changes, change of majors, things of that nature. And then on the side, I'm doing something called Sparkhead University to just try to help students with college success. And it's really more life success. Just how do you use college to be more successful?
I love that angle. Can't wait to dive into that. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about your own education path, right? So obviously you're in the colleges and universities creating curriculum. But before that, what kind of student was Naphtali?
I went on campus at first. So the best way to describe it is the Alamo Colleges has 5 different colleges. So imagine the UT system, the A&M, I'm in Texas, A&M system, those types of things. But they're sister schools. So if you go to one school, you don't really have to do a whole bunch to transfer your credits to the other school. It's almost as if they have the same transcript type thing. So I was going to one school, and in the middle of the semester, we couldn't get financial aid at that school. Well, we couldn't take the classes I was taking at the campus I was taking it at. So I wound up becoming an online student. So from like 2010 through the rest of my collegiate career, I was an online student. But then right around 2012, I signed up for a thing called the Alamo Colleges Student Leadership Institute. And so I was going on campus twice a month, almost 3 times a month. And then from there, I started getting involved because as an online student, I didn't know what was going on campus. So once I started getting involved, I started getting awards, started getting scholarships. Then the sky was the limit. From 2013 through 2015, I earned $35,000 in scholarships. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but I was already receiving financial aid. So my financial aid was paying all of my books and tuition. So the $35,000 outside of my travel abroad scholarship, I pocketed all that money. So I tell people I did get paid to go to school, which I did. Excuse me. So once I started doing that, student organizations would ask me about how do you get scholarships? Now, for me, it was easy just because I was throwing stuff up against the board and it was working. And so I started telling students how you do it. And it was free. I didn't have a system or anything like that. So anybody that would ask, I would just say, yeah, let's do it. But then in 2017, a doctor in Virginia, she said, well, how much do you charge for your service? Well, I didn't have a service. So I was like, well, excuse me, I nothing. I don't know what to tell you. She said, make an invoice. So I charged her like $25. And then from there, Sparkhead University kind of got birthed. But it was really, my collegiate career was a student that I was unknown. And then I had perfect timing. A lot of the stuff I did, it was the first in the history of the school or that organization. So I had just the perfect timing of, I would do something and I'd be the first in school history. And so I became a historic college student because of perfect timing and being involved. And so that's what I was as a college student. And I still, to this day, kind of think of myself as a college student, even though I work at the college as a staff member. I still kind of think that way. So I could kind of try to think of how maybe a student would walk in and how confusing college can be. And it can be confusing. It's simplified when you work it and you do it every day. But when you're a student that just decided, I need to change my life, it can be confusing. And so I still try to stay in that same mind frame.
I really like that because it's empathy, right? You have to be empathetic to students. You got to understand where they're coming from. Man, I just got some chills thinking about going to my undergrad and standing in lines and like, what is going on here, right? Well, let's go behind that. So in high school, were you even thinking about like what was going to happen, scholarships? How did this whole thing evolve from graduating high school until you went to and started figuring all these things out?
Really life happened. So I had a son as a teenager. I had a son right as soon as I graduated. So I had two kids coming out of high school. Got married at like 20, got divorced at 24. I worked for the Army and Air Force Exchange Service, which is basically like the retail arm on an Army and Air Force base. Did that for like 13 years. And then just being me, I started taking some of their extra classes. I found out about them. I started taking their classes. And I got into school because I was halfway done with their retail management certificate, but I would have had to sign a mobility agreement. And I was like, I didn't join the military, so I didn't have anybody tell me where I could live type thing. So then why would I do that in the traditional sense? So I said, let me go to school and get a management certificate from the school. My current job didn't take it. Well, my job at the time didn't take that. And I was like, that's kind of weird. So then, like I said, I got involved in that business. I got involved in the Alamo College's Student Leadership Institute. And the second semester of that, going into 2013, a instructor, she just signed me up for this business competition. I didn't know anything about it. She just signed me up. The way I found out was they sent me an email, said you owe us $45 and welcome to the competition. I was like, well, first of all, who are you? Let alone, why would I pay you $45? And so I didn't know then that was the catalyst for basically the rest of my life. So it wound up being an international business competition. I had started getting enough financial aid and a little bit of scholarships with taxes and everything. I knew I could quit my job at the time. I quit right before that business competition started. And we wound up getting third place out of 18 teams representing 23 countries. So because of that, all the rest of this stuff basically was birthed off of that. And so I was a football player in high school. So that's all I wanted to do. But I didn't think about college like that. And then I went to where I currently work, but I wasn't involved. I was just going for financial aid. And so I went, kind of screwed that up a little bit. I didn't screw it up too bad, not bad enough to where, when I came back, I was okay. But I came back, I had a decent amount of credits. And then when I came back, I had a different purpose in mind. When I came back, nobody was basically forcing me. It was just, I want to be a better person. And I was older when I did it at that time. And so then I started getting involved, and then I started seeing how far I could take this thing. And the whole thought process basically in the middle of it was, let's see how far you can go with it. And then the degrees were great. That was all cool, but it was bigger than that. How impactful can I be? And I knew I would have to be, I'd have to use more than my degree, because everybody at a college, for whatever reason, gets a degree. And so that wasn't going to make me as impactful because everybody's got one.
Yeah.
I was wondering, what was I going to do with my life now because of that? And I didn't know, basically, I was reborn by going back to college and joining that student organization.
That's awesome, because just being curious, man, like I could feel the competitor in you. You're like, oh, hold up, we're going to take this to the goal line, and then we're going to go out of the stadium, and then we're going to go, so I can feel that. I'm son of a football coach, so that's my analogy. So, but I think so. You help people many, many different ways. Obviously, just understanding their lens, and then just being there in trying to understand, okay, this is a route you can take, and this is a route you can take. Let's jump a little bit into some of the things. So I have a lot of listeners who are parents of high school students, and even some high school students out there, or even college students or college age students. I guess we're all college students anyway. It doesn't end, right? But who might be thinking, you know what, I need to get a part of a degree or finish up or something like that. I think the biggest misconception, and I know you're going to take this and run with it, but is if you don't get a scholarship when you're like a senior in high school, it's all done, which is totally false, right?
Yeah,
So give us a couple like kind of big notes there that, you know, 1, 2, 3 different things that people probably could use just in general with scholarships that you found.
One of the things I found out is that scholarships are a lot easier to get than most people understand. And most people, I call it a scholarship psychology. Most people think only a certain person is going to get that scholarship. So they think that if you don't have the 4.0, if you're not president of this, student body of that you're not going to get the scholarship. When, believe it or not, C students can get scholarships, because if you have a 2.0 or greater, for a lot of the school's general scholarships, they start at 2.0. So as long as you're quote unquote passing, you have an opportunity to get a scholarship. And the second thing is that there's so much scholarship money that goes untapped, literally because students do not apply for them. There's money that's out there that after a while, the organization has to get rid of that money. And so where they get stuck is they don't have enough applicants. Excuse me. And so what happens is that money just sits there. So sometimes, at least it happened to me at least 3 times. Wow. To where I was the 10th person that applied for the scholarship. They needed 10 people, and they extended the scholarship like 2 or 3 times for the deadline. So they were getting desperate about giving away this money. I found out about it late, applied. I had one lady tell me, we saw your application, but we didn't read your essay. We literally just gave you the scholarship because you wind up being the 10th person, and we can make the argument for why you should have gotten it. The third is that it's just like anything, just like business or anything else. Networking is bigger in scholarships than most people think. So one of the things I used to do was I would ask a general question, and a general question would be something like, how can I upload an official transcript? Well, if you know anything about transcripts, at least the paper type, then you have to cut open that envelope. The problem is you cannot upload an official transcript from paper because you have to cut it open. So I knew that. So I would just ask, can I copy and paste from my school website an unofficial transcript? I knew I was going to do that anyway. What I was trying to do was find a name. The executive director, there's different names for those organizations. It's sometimes executive director, student director. It normally didn't say scholarship coordinator. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. But once I got that first name that answered my email, I then went straight to LinkedIn. I would find them on LinkedIn, see who they're connected on LinkedIn. And now I would do this, maybe a couple of weeks ahead of time. But then all of my extracurricular activities, the volunteerism and all that, I would post on my LinkedIn. So what started happening was I started getting name recognition, excuse me. And so what would happen is by the time my application got to them, they already knew who I was. So it made it easier for me to get the scholarship. So that's just 3 of the things that students and parents should understand. The fourth one, and a lot of students don't think this, keep all your scholarship essays. Because what winds up happening is you'll start getting awarded scholarships and you'll see a certain theme. Maybe they're all leadership. Maybe they're all business. Maybe they're all nursing. And they're going to ask similar questions when they ask you for the essay. So what you could do is then keep your essay that was successful, put the prompt, whatever that question was, as the title, paste the scholarship essay you've already had, see if it answers the question. If it does, then you can add some stuff, take some stuff out, and the timing of writing those essays is a whole lot shorter. So that's just 4 things that I did.
Those are brilliant, brilliant. And yeah, it's wonderful because so many students, the networking thing and getting out there, that's such a strategic way. And thank you so much for sharing those. That is fantastic. I'm going to
Oh, you're welcome.
shift a little gear here and start thinking, okay, so, not all these things are out there.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of other things where there's limited access and all these different inequities and things that are going on in education that COVID has kind of opened up. With your experiences, you could talk about secondary, primary, post-secondary education. How do we do it better, man? How do we? What are some things that you could see that, hey, man, we need to change this now, or this is something that we should probably not do, or this is something that we should do?
I think the ultimate change probably would be, at least through K through 12, would be school financing. So, like in Texas, where I'm at, they go by property tax. Well, without getting too controversial, if you know anything about redlining, then what basically happened was certain neighborhoods were redlined just for a certain population. Well, because of that, it really hasn't changed. So the poorer schools are always going to be poor because of the level of property tax they're getting from their neighborhood, which, years, centuries ago was redlined. So if you stay in that, then there's going to be systemic inequity because of the property taxes. So that's just one. I think the second thing, there's a thing coming out about free college, and I think that's great. But I also think we have to um, get out of the traditional mindset. So, prime example, how many people have used college algebra since they've left college? Not saying it's bad, not saying that you may not need it, because maybe some of the new tools that we have was somebody using algebra, but I mean the average student. We don't use that, but we have not added financial literacy. And I mean the real financial literacy, not just saving and budgeting, which is part of it, but how you can own what you pay for. How you can, with certain apps, I won't say who they are, but how you could use those types of apps at $5 a piece to start getting into the game. Even if you're making $15 an hour, how you could start getting into that. How you can own Starbucks if you like drinking it so much, why not own it? And how we're not teaching that. And then secondly, I know English is important and writing is important, but people are getting fired for what they put on social media more than they're getting fired for the reports that they're turning into their boss. So why don't we have social media etiquette? I mean, the president of the United States, the former president of the United States, was using social media more than he was using the White House press secretary. Now he's been kicked off of it, but you couldn't stop him from saying what he was saying until they literally kicked him off of there. So if you can get fired for social media, or in the case of George Floyd, somebody posts one thing and it literally changes the world, why wouldn't we teach every student that's got an iPhone or an Android or an iPad how to change the world with their voice? Why aren't we teaching that part? And I think the third for me, now this is just personal, is emotional intelligence. If you've got all these people that have been quarantined, have COVID, had COVID, know somebody that's got COVID, a simple cough can trigger PTSD. I've had friends who's, had a parent that passed from COVID. So just imagine what those 5 letters together can do to somebody's psyche. And then on top of that, tell them that they've got to work and they've got to pay bills and they've got to feed their family, secretly having a mental health crisis. So why wouldn't it be normal, just normal basic education, to have some level of emotional intelligence and no self-awareness and be able to explain to somebody, listen, I don't feel well today. Well, you look okay. I'm in a bad headspace. And so if you're serving specifically teachers, how can I teach when I'm in a bad headspace? And so I think it's something that we should teach across the board, specifically in higher education, because you're paying for it. So why not? But I think it's something that across the board we can do. And I think that how we pay for school and how it's distributed, how those dollars are distributed, I think that's going to change everything.
Yeah, man, such good. I mean, okay, let's talk about property taxes, redlining. Just a case that was outed in Indianapolis last week. Same, yeah, then you go into financial literacy, but not the surface stuff. I love that, man. Apps to be named, but we know, right? Like, yeah, I got you. And then, talking about being able to use social media, not be used by it and understanding it, right? The power of it, and how to use it for good. And then, understanding social emotional. Man, you nailed every single thing that's disrupting education. I love it. That's fantastic. We got a lot of work in front of us, but that I think was what makes it very, very exciting. One last big question. You're a junior or senior in high school. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for that person?
Do everything you can and take as much time as you need to know what your life purpose is. And if you've got to throw everything up against the wall to find that out, and if it takes you 10 years, I know that may not, college people won't like that, and the reason why I say that is because when you do that, it's easier to go through the roadblocks that you're going to go through, because you know it's why you were born. And then once you do that, you can align your life, and you'll find that even if you took a lot of time, you won't start wasting time. Most of us who went to college just straight and didn't know what they were going to do wanted to do with their life, not their career, but their life, wind up, they're disappointed. A lot of the student loan crisis is not financial. We just put a financial number on it. It's really people who spent $100,000 for a piece of paper they don't use. And they would have used it, and that $100,000 may not have been that bad of an investment had they known that being a doctor is what I was born to do. Being a nurse was what I was born to do. So the rest of this is just investing in me. It's just I'm paying somebody else to help me invest in me. But when you don't know that part, then life gets expensive. I mean, I work in an office where if you have an epiphany and you change your major, we charge you. And I see the fee go up. And so I would say, and some parents won't like it, but as long as colleges are open, you've got time to go back. But the greatest thing you can do is find your purpose, whatever that is, and take your time finding it. Be sure of it once you get it, and then align your entire life, everything from what you eat to what time you go to bed to who you hang around with. Everything's got to be purpose driven. And if you can do that, then at the end of your life, 80, 90, 100 years old, you'll pass with no regrets. And that's the best way to pass, is with no regrets.
I wanted to give you a chance to give a shout out of where can people find you? Where can people find your services? And how can they connect with you? You are just a plethora of information, especially when it comes to post-secondary education. I wanted my listeners to get a chance to connect with you and reach out.
Well, they can reach out in several ways. They can go to my website, www.spark-eduniversity.org. Or if they want to personally get with me, they can just follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Naphtali. Middle name is Tekoa, Tekoa Bryant. And the only reason why I say that is because there's two of us. There's two Naphtali Bryants. So I have to always differentiate myself. But he's a great guy. To connect with me, I'm on social media. Most of my social media tags are either Naphtali Bryant or Naphtali T Bryant.
And thank you, Naphtali. Thank you so much, man, for hanging out with us on Disrupt Education. It's a privilege and a pleasure. And for my listeners, you really want to reach out, connect with this guy. Just a plethora of information. And like he just did here on the podcast, it's going to be real. So thank you so much for hanging out with us, man.
Oh, man. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
All right. And thank you all listeners for hanging out with us as well. Hit that subscribe button, pass it along. There's great information. We'll keep disrupting education.